Welcome to today's edition of the IntoTexas AI podcast. It's your look at AI news and trends impacting Texas. I'm your host, Shannon Belew. Let's get started. Today we're talking about humans that look like people and airlines that don't want them to be passengers anymore. Today's story sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi comedy. A humanoid robot boards a Southwest Airlines flight, buckles into a window seat, charms passengers, and 2 days later, the airline bans human-like robots altogether. Yes, this really happened. And of course, it happened in Texas. The robot happened to belong to the Robot Studio, a North Dallas company that actually rents humanoid robots for events and other functions, do a lot with education. Well, after the company's owner purchased a ticket for and flew the robot, who happens to be named Stewie, from Las Vegas to Dallas Love Field, Southwest quickly issued a safety alert and new policy prohibiting robots from both cabins and checked baggage, effective immediately. Going forward, the robots are considered cargo. Case closed. But that raises a surprisingly profound question. How should we treat our robots? Should they be passengers? Could they be passengers? What about employees, property, teammates, or something in between? Today, we'll take a closer look at this Dallas story and explore other examples where robots are being treated more like humans. And we're going to ask what this means as Texas continues to expand its state of robotics and physical AI. The flight that grounded the robots. Picture the scene. A 3.5-foot humanoid robot named Stewie walks through the airport, including security, by the way. Passengers pull out their phones, children wave, flight attendants stare, and it's all captured and shared on social media, of course. Well, then Stewie settles into his own paid seat on a Southwest flight. Because to be clear, Stewie the robot had a ticket. He wore a seatbelt. He even got the window seat. How did he manage that? And by all accounts, he was a model passenger. No complaints, no armrest disputes with other passengers, and no need for snacks. But 2 days later, Southwest announced a new rule. No more human-like or animal-like robots on board. And according to the only search result that I could find on the airline's website, this was under their help center, where it asked the question, can I bring a robot on board? And Southwest provided the following answer. Southwest Airlines does not allow human-like or animal-like robots to be transported in the cabin or as checked baggage, regardless of size or purpose. A quote, human-like robot is a robot designed to resemble or imitate a human in its appearance, movement, or behavior. An animal-like robot is a robot designed to resemble or imitate an animal in its appearance, movement, or behavior. That's pretty much it. Well, don't worry, kids and parents. There was one other little footnote to this answer to the question. Southwest did say that all other robots, including toys, are still allowable, but must be able to fit within a carry-on size bag and comply with existing battery restrictions. Now, Southwest has said that the decision to ban humanoids was made to ensure compliance with lithium-ion battery safety requirements. In other words, this really wasn't about whether or not robots deserve a seat on a plane. It was about how existing safety rules apply to machines that just happen to increasingly look and behave like us. What about when technology breaks our categories? You know, this story on the surface is truly funny, but it does reveal something serious. Humans like categories. And we think of things as, in the case of the plane, right? It's a passenger, or it's cargo, it's an employee, it's a pet, it's equipment. But humanoid robots don't really fit neatly into any of those boxes. They speak, they gesture, they make eye contact, they perform jobs, and they sit in seats designed for humans. So this creates a sort of cognitive friction for us humans. So when something looks like us, it looks human, we instinctively treat it differently. And that's why people took selfies with Stewie instead of asking how much he weighed. It's why passengers on that flight described the robot as entertaining. And it's why a robot on a plane just feels fundamentally different from a laptop in a case. Let's talk about the science of anti-robot speciesism. I hope I said that right. Look, I don't blame Southwest for its swift ban on humanoids. There's a lot to consider, and this is new territory for all of us. In fact, researchers are now studying this phenomenon, how we humans respond to this new type of human-like machinery. In fact, there was a 2025 academic paper called Anti-Robot Speciesism, which found that humans systematically deny robots human-like status even when they display capabilities very similar to us. Why? Well, according to this paper, it's because giving robots this human-like standing challenges our sense of what makes us as humans unique. We want the convenience that robots provide, but we're uncomfortable treating them as equals. So we shift our standards. When it suits us, a robot is a companion. When it becomes inconvenient, it's just a machine. And that is exactly what happened on Southwest. For one day, Stewie was a passenger, and then he became a prohibited device. Let's look at some other times where robots have been treated like humans, because this is not an isolated incident. Robots, citizenship, and marathons. They've all made the news in the last few years, few months, few weeks, right? But most notably, I think this is one of the most interesting stories. In 2017, there was a humanoid robot called Sophia, and she was created by Hanson Robotics. She was actually granted citizenship by Saudi Arabia. Now, the very humanesque robot triggered a global debate, as you can imagine. Can a robot be a citizen if it doesn't have rights or responsibilities in the way that humans do? Well, since then, the Hong Kong-based company has continued to advance the development of humanoids with an increasingly human-like presence. Intentionally, the company is really dedicated to creating what they think of as social robots that are, quote, genuinely alive looking and intelligent. And if you take a look at their website and the videos they have, it is absolutely incredible. But here's another really interesting bit. Hanson Robotics, founded in 2007 by David Hanson, was originally based in Dallas, Texas. The company relocated to Asia in 2017 in order to be part of the thriving innovation ecosystem there for robotics. So speaking of which, another very recent humanoid experience coming out of Asia, it really caught our attention recently, right? When over 100 humanoid robots ran a Beijing half marathon in April, just a few weeks ago. You probably saw it all over the news. And a Chinese developed robot named Lightning actually broke the human world record when it finished the 21-kilometer race in just over 50 minutes, beating the official human record by more than 6 minutes. That's pretty impressive. So while there were some notable and very human-like trips, falls, and false starts, there's no doubt that these humanoids can compete. Now let's talk about robots as employees, because that's a real thing happening right now as well. The examples that we think about aren't just passing curiosities or social experiments anymore. We see robots increasingly show up as workers in restaurants, hotels, airports, and hospitals. Robots increasingly work as concierge, guides, and assistants. In fact, a very recent story, Japan Airlines just announced that it is testing humanoid robots to help with various airline functions. So beginning in May this month, the airline will now use humanoids to help clean the cabins of planes, assist with baggage handling, and, well, even loading and unloading cargo from the plane. Yikes, talk about awkward. Can you imagine poor Stewie being handled by one of his peers? Well, maybe Southwest was a bit too quick to kick Stewie off the plane, and maybe they should have started discussions about a position in baggage handling. Just saying. But I do digress, because let's take another look at robots as teammates. There are, as I said, already plenty of work environment situations where we see the human in humanoids. Manufacturing companies routinely assign names to robots and treat them as members of the workforce. In some facilities, for example, you may hear employees say things like, "Hey, ask Bob to move that pallet," even when Bob is the machine, the humanoid. And then there are robots as legal property, right? Because despite all of these human-like roles, robots do technically remain property under current law. They can be bought, leased, insured, and grounded by airline policy. Well, I always like to bring it back to the local aspect of Texas. So let's talk about the rise of physical AI that's happening right now in Texas. We're definitely becoming a player in this world of physical AI. In my own experience, just recent months even, I've interacted with humanoids at a local AI conference. Even one humanoid who, like the rest of us, needed to take a quick break and was seen sitting in a chair resting. But I've also watched a robot pick up a to-go order from a restaurant and deliver the food down the street. No human on board. And we're not talking about a car. It's truly just a small robot delivering food. I've also had a robot serve me food in a restaurant. I've interacted with robots at airports when traveling. So these interactions with humanoids in the physical everyday world are absolutely increasing. It's not a novelty. So when we talk about physical AI today, let's define it very quickly as artificial intelligence embedded in machines that move and act in the real world. So examples of this absolutely include those humanoid robots, autonomous vehicles fit in this category, warehouse robots, medical robots, drones. And when you think about, again, what's happening here in Texas, Dallas, Austin, and Houston are all emerging as major robotics hubs. And Dallas-based companies like the Robot Studio, who flew Stewie on his first and only Southwest flight, are helping to introduce robots to everyday life for us. It's a growing area of the economy in the broader Texas landscape of AI. But as robots do become more common in Texas and beyond, I think society will need to think about some new norms. And so I started to consider, what this new era of humanoid etiquette might look like. Now, these are by no means a standard, but just some of the things that kind of came to mind as I was thinking about this story for today. And so there are, I think, 5 kind of emerging principles or areas that we need to start considering in the treatment of robots. 1, respect the illusion. If a robot appears human-like, people will interact with it socially, and that's okay. But it doesn't mean that it has feelings. It does mean, however, that design influences behavior, and that's important. 2, follow the safety rules. A robot may look like a person, but regulators still focus on batteries, weight, and mechanical risk and other safety issues. And in aviation, like we saw with Southwest, physics matter more than personality. Rules matter more than how cute that Stewie robot might have looked and interacted as he interacted with us. And then 3, don't assume rights. So today's robots do not have legal rights in the way that we as humans do. Well, except perhaps Sonia with her citizenship in Saudi Arabia. But as far as I know, she may be the exception. Otherwise, they are still considered tools. Very sophisticated tools, but tools nonetheless. And then 4, I think we should recognize the emotional impact people, right? And robots. People form those attachments to machines. So children, they may treat a robot as a friend. Customers may view it as a host. Employees may treat it as a teammate or a colleague. This is a real thing that we as humans do, is form those connections even with machines. And we need to acknowledge that. And then lastly, number 5, I think prepare for ambiguity. So the more human-like robots become, I think the harder it's going to be to distinguish between object and social actor. I mean, we've seen this even in the case of AI and Hollywood, with AI generating what looks like real people acting in real movies, singing in real songs. It's really started a lot of debate and discussion and rules around how the movie industry handles AI and this human-like use and delivery of AI. So again, across all sorts of industries, there's going to be a lot of ambiguity when we talk about both today, what's happening with humanoids, and again, as they continue to develop and get more sophisticated. If you're a leader in business today, what are some of the things that you should consider? Well, I think the question isn't about whether or not robots today deserve rights. I think it's whether your organization is prepared to integrate them. Consider travel and logistics policies, insurance coverage, cybersecurity, employee training and interaction, customer acceptance, and ethical guidelines. So if you deploy humanoid robots in retail, hospitality, healthcare, or manufacturing, where you see it most commonly, I think these issues become operational decisions that you as a leader and as a company have to start making. The Southwest story, it's a fun but true warning sign that we need to be paying attention to from a business standpoint. Policies that were built for traditional devices may not fit the next generation of embodied AI. So think about how we already interact with machines. We say things like thank you to voice assistants, sorry when we bump into robot vacuums, good job to chatbots. These behaviors may seem and feel trivial, but they reveal that humans naturally apply social norms to machines. As robots become more capable, those norms will become more formal. One day we may have robot travel policies, robot workplace handbooks, robot etiquette standards, robot insurance categories. Heck, they may already exist and I just don't know it. But yes, there may even be, one day in the future, robot loyalty programs. So imagine Stewie has reached A-list preferred status. Let's hope, for Stewie's sake, he gets there. All right, only in Texas could a story this unusual become a meaningful business case study. A Dallas robotics company pushes the boundaries of what is possible. A Dallas-based airline rewrites policy almost overnight. And the incident truly sparks a larger discussion about the future of human-machine relationships. Yes, this is exactly one of the many reasons why Texas matters in the AI economy. It's not just adopting AI. Texas is stress testing the social and operational systems that will define how AI functions in everyday life. So, closing out today's episode, I have to ask, how should you treat your robots? Treat them respectfully, treat them safely, and treat them as advanced tools. And prepare for the moment when the distinction between machine and teammate becomes less obvious. Stewie may not have rights yet. He may not have frequent flyer miles yet. And he may not be welcome as a passenger on an airline anytime soon. But he has already accomplished something remarkable. He forced a major airline and all of us to confront a question that will become increasingly important. When our machines begin to look and act like us, what do we owe them? And perhaps even more important, what does the way we treat them reveal about ourselves? I'm Shannon Belew, and this has been today's episode of the IntoTexas AI podcast. If you want more insights on how AI is reshaping Texas, I invite you to watch again, listen again, share, and please subscribe. That's all for today. I'll see you next time.